We all knew that the Defy shutdown was going to happen, but there have been streamers who have moderated random people and it ended poorly. It created a lot of tax issues for me, fun fact. I see a lot of issues with Smosh as a company. I see that a lot of people were hurt. Today we are celebrating 20 years of Smosh, a milestone achievement that I can't even believe that I am able to say. 20 years of a brand on YouTube is very much not just unheard of, but very uncommon. For those of you who do not know, I am Luke. I used to be a moderator, producer, editor. I wore a lot of hats for former cast members, mostly of the games department. Now, if you can't tell by my slow clapping, I'm very excited. I'm actually very excited. To all of you working at Smosh, who have worked at Smosh, who will continue to work at Smosh, and especially to all the community members, other moderators, and folks who have just come around to this corner of the internet, you should be proud of yourself. And also, thank you. Because of this tiny little corner of the internet, I have my career, and that is why I will always be thankful for stepping into the Smosh community. I started watching back in 2010, and since then it has evolved into a production career that I'm very proud of. So I just wanted to talk about my experiences as a form of celebration. This isn't going to be a tell-all. This will be a tell-most celebration. We'll get into some of the drama of it all, but if you have any questions, I would love to answer them. Just comment them below and like and subscribe. I will be live on Twitch every day for 2026. So make sure to go follow. But without further ado, I know why you're here. You want to talk about Smosh, and you want to hear about the experiences of a moderator slash producer slash, I don't even know what to call myself, digital producer, whatever. Let's get into it. Like I said, I started watching Smosh in 2010. This was at the time where they were doing those crazy green thumbnails that if you know them, you know them. And for those of you who do not know, Smosh is often credited with creating the thumbnail game. I don't know if I would be the first to agree with that. There were definitely a lot of YouTube channels who were on the trend of making poppable, clickable thumbnails at the time. It's definitely interesting to consider that they were some of the most successful to do it at the time because, hey, in 2010, they got me to click. And then in 2012 came Smosh Games. I wasn't really watching until 2013. I was obsessed with Mario Craft. That was my everyday Monday, come home from school, middle school. I was in middle school at the time. I am now a 3-year college graduate. But I remember 2014, I really wanted to watch Grand Theft Smosh, and being the goody two-shoes that I am, I went to my mom and I was like, Mother, I would really like to watch this YouTube video. Would you let me? And she was like,
sure. I don't know why you're asking me.
I watched Grand Theft Smosh, and then it turned into a whole thing of like, wow, I really love this group of creators. Around this time was when Wes and Flitz were starting to join Smosh Games. Beforehand, it was just Mari, Lasercorn, Joven, and Sohinki. And so this was when we got to the big six that most people know of this Smosh Games era. And in January of 2015, this would be the time where I downloaded Twitch for the very first time. For those of you who do not know, Twitch is the live streaming app where people go to live stream video games. Back in 2015, things were a lot different. It was still mostly the same. Like, that old mod icon is still the same. Big emotes like Kappa are still there. Not used as much, but it was definitely a different time. I downloaded Twitch because I saw that Matt Sohinki specifically was going live, and I was like, I have nothing better to do. I want to watch. And so from there, I downloaded Twitch. I was mostly active in his community, Lasercorn and Wes's. They were like the big three of the time streaming on Twitch. And I was a little troll. That's right, 14-year-old me was not the kindest soul. I mean, I was pretty kind of a person. There's only so much maturity that a 14-year-old can have, especially going into like high school, leaving middle school. Yeah, no, it was bad. I was definitely creating a lot of problems for all of the other moderators there at the time, who now have since come around to becoming such amazing friends, such great people. I'm so sorry for all of the terror that I used to Now I know what you're thinking. 2015 was when I joined. I said that I've been a moderator / producer for 10 years, and I've kind of disclosed my age. Right now I'm 25. So that means I got my first moderating position when I was 15. That can't be right. No, it was right. No, I was 15 when I got my first mod position. August of 2015, Lasercorn handed the mod sword to me in his channel, not knowing what big of a mistake he was making at the time. I mean, it ended up working out. Now, I'm not saying any of this to diss Lasercorn, because he did make a bad choice modding me. His philosophy was always that he didn't really care for the structure, the order of chat. If someone said something offensive, he knew how to skip over it, and he kind of just assumed that people would also do the same. It led to a lot of issues, which is why I think eventually he realized he needed one or two. He eventually modded someone who I was friends with at the time, was a little bit older than me, had a little bit more maturity. In the event that person wasn't there or couldn't make it, you know, one mod can only go so far and do so much. And so that's why he did eventually choose to moderate me. And yeah, a lot of people were not happy with that decision. I remember a lot of people coming to me at this time telling me I was too immature for the job. And yes, they were right. I have nothing to add to that, actually. One of the things that we tried to do is to create, you know, and this was me just being 14 years old and being a kid. We were trying to make the Smosh Games Police Department and do like a whole moderator thing of like just keeping track of the community, and it never ended up being anything. It was just like a group chat name. Looking back, you just see someone who was more obsessed with being part of something than to really like actually help out. That was definitely not the best time. Luckily, there was not much happening. I didn't really have to do much, especially because of how Lasercorn was as a person. I just kind of sat there with the badge next to my name, and I thought I was something. I had a little moderator badge. You know, that's what you think, especially as a kid when you have something like that. You think you're doing something, and I kind of realized, the way that I act influences the way other people in chat act. And so this is kind of one of those things where if I had to give a piece of advice as a moderator, it's to remember that your actions influence a lot of other actions that occur in chat. So if you do not act on your best behavior, other people will not. And those definitely led to some serious moments within the Smosh community at the time. One of the other things that I do want to touch on is another piece of advice. This is kind of turning into like an advice video. I don't know why, but another piece of advice if you are just starting streaming on Twitch. This is something that I talked to a lot of creators about because it was a problem back then. It's a problem now. Do not moderate random people. This is just a number one. I got very lucky that I was in the right place at the right time to have someone like Lasercorn mod me. And also, he was very lucky that I didn't end up being a Looney Tunes stranger. There have been instances, and I'm not going to call out specific instances, but there have been streamers within this group who have moderated random people and it ended poorly. It's very important to remember that if you're going to pull moderators from your community, you have to go through a vetting process first. This goes to anyone and everyone, and it is still the number one mistake that I see from new streamers nowadays. But regardless, this kind of was an era of my life that lasted a few years. This was when Smosh was really starting to change. I know that this was a very dark era of Smosh as Defy really started to put its grubby little hands onto everything. It was really cool that I got to be like a part of this to some capacity. And that was one of the things that I kept in my head was, you know, you're part of something really cool, even if you're just doing this one thing by showing up. Sometimes showing up is enough, and I was glad to be doing that at this time. I kind of want to talk about what the Smosh community looked like at this time, because I know the Smosh community of today looks a lot different than the community of way back when. Around this time, the Smosh community had a lot of different circles. And the major one though was pretty much the Twitch group, because that is the thing with Twitch is it is so good at building community in a way that being able to connect, talk, and exist together. I think that is one of the reasons why Smosh games continue to be so popular at a time like this, was because of the ability of the creators, of the cast members to connect in a way that a lot of the different circles of Smosh couldn't. This was definitely at a time where the main channel was the big prize possession, and then Games was doing its own thing. It's really interesting to consider those communities, because that's how it really was too for the community. Was you had the Smosh community doing this thing, and then you had the Smosh Games community. And mostly those communities didn't really mesh. They just didn't. There was a lot of people going back and forth who were a part of both. But if I, at the time, was a part of this games community and I were to walk over just down the street to the Smosh community, I would not know half of the people in that area. It was a very interesting dynamic that I look back to, and I just consider how Defy as a company was really mismanaging its community. I didn't learn that much from Lasercorn, but as these other community leaders started coming together, you know, things did start to get set. Things did start to get pieced together, and this is definitely around the time where we as a community started to see that Defy was starting to fall apart. We all knew that the Defy shutdown was going to happen. I don't want to say that we were like predicting it like big brain, but we definitely saw the inner workings of disaster. And I know that's a very big thing to say. You never want to say that, and we never wish that upon anyone, but we heard a lot of complaints. Not me specifically, but definitely through the grapevine, a lot of things were said. There were cast members who were upset with other folks. There were talks about how frustrating the contracts were. We knew these things, but these things were also somehow getting out to the community. I remember getting to a point where people were talking about Smosh drama that was going on at record amounts. It was really well contained on the Twitch side, I should say. I'll never forget around this 2017-2018 era, just going on Twitter and starting to see the rumblings. This is editor Luke coming in after the fact to just add some things, because I feel like I do a poor job explaining it. There were some former producers, editors, other employees of Defy Media specifically, who were also interacting with community members on Instagram, Twitter, whether they were somewhere in group chats, some were in private DMs with fans, with specifically fans. As you can tell, a lot of the information and the drama and the problems were not being well contained, to the point that community members were being used as literal backboards for venting, for discussing issues with the company. And that is why we saw so much of these problems become public on Twitter. And sure, they didn't amount to anything huge, but that was showing the inner workings of something that was bound to fall apart. And that is why earlier I say that we knew that this was going to happen, is because we saw all of these issues becoming public like it was nothing. If you want to look all of this up, it's probably on Reddit, but I just remember this being the time of like, oh, something's happening. So by this point, I have started to develop a lot of like professional working relationships with a lot of the different cast members of games. And I say working relationships, I more so mean professional. I wasn't working for anyone yet. I was still just Lasercorn's mod. That's just who I was. That was learning a lot of rumblings, keeping my mouth sealed, hearing the tea, hearing the gossip, and just existing. November 2018, I'm starting college, and that's when we find out Defiance shut down. I will not get into this because I can't provide anything new that you don't know. All of the stories that I know and have heard were told through the Smosh cast, the old Smosh cast that started up around this time. I just remember being like, wow, these people who have like been there for me are out of a job. That was when I started to see myself mature. And I think that this is the point where I really stood my ground and started my personal career. I was still a fan. Like, I was still in fan mentality. It's funny looking back. I really hate it. It's a cringy time. But during this Defy shutdown was when I really stood up and went to the plate and said, these are a group of people who I care about, and I have a power to do something. So I stood up and used my power. One of the first things I remember doing was I edited a little Twitter short where I made the Smosh or like the Office theme song, but I put all the cast members. I don't know. All I remember is someone, I think it was Courtney, someone retweeted it and it got like 10,000 likes, and it was really cool. The big two projects that I did around this time, one of the ones that I did was the Smosh, the show, and it was a 30-minute sketch on the dot. It's not on YouTube. I took it down. I was way too embarrassed after the fact. I created this video. I'll throw up an image on the screen because I know I still have the MP4 somewhere, and I hate that I do. I should just delete it off my computer. It was a 30-minute sketch. I think the plot was like, oh, we need to get this video out for the community, like this thank you community video. But what this video was one big sketch just to say thank you. And that's why I've called this video Thank You Smosh again, because back in July 2019, when this video was released, Thank You Smosh, it was a thank you of all of the community. We had so many video submissions, so many people who wanted to be in the thank you reel. They didn't want to submit a video, which is so fair, but they wanted to make sure their name was seen. People who didn't want to submit a video, so they submitted audio. And it was just a big reel of people being like, thank you. Thank you for everything that you've done. I'm so sorry that this company has done this to you. You don't deserve this, and we are here for you. The reason why I'm like so thankful that I did this was because that's when I found out I had a voice, especially on the sphere of Twitch. Not just in the Smosh community, but like on Twitch. Like, I realized that I can sit here and do something. And just getting all of those video files in, you know, I wasn't even an editor at this time. I was using, God, I would love to know what I edited that video in. It was probably iMovie. It was very heartwarming. It was very touching to see the amount of outpouring support from all sides of the community. And this is why I brought up the Smosh and Smosh games were very separate, because during this Defy shutdown, both communities were affected. And that is when we saw the communities really push together for a very big moment of unity. And as we'll see, that doesn't last that long. I really hope that, like, for anyone who was working at Smosh at the time, anyone who was there and remembered that video, it got like 10,000 views. And that was before I privated it, because I got so embarrassed with my acting that I privated it for a while. I remember Smosh account was fully retweeting it too, promoting it, and that was just the moment for me where I was like, I've made my stamp on this community. This was the moment where I went from I'm a fan to, oh, I'm really helping out. Of course, I was at a point where Mari already knew me, a bunch of the cast members already knew me. And I think that's when I started to become a lot more trusted because of this project that will forever hold significance in my heart. As cringy as it may have been. I said there were 2 projects because immediately right after, I continued to use my voice. I was a Twitch streamer at this time. Oh, yeah, no. I think I saw that a cast member was struggling to afford rent, and they were talking about that because of the Defy shutdown. I really wish I could sit there and say, I can get $100,000 and give every single person like $1,000. I knew that that wasn't going to be the case. So because I was a member of the Smosh Games community, this was when I did a big charity stream and raised over $7,000 for the then 6 cast members of games. Total, I think it was like $1,600. I'm gonna throw up the clips because I remember it got clipped for, I think it did for Lasercorn. I know it did for Mari, but it was just a very powerful moment for me. It created a lot of tax issues for me, fun fact. But no, it was a very big moment. It was something that I'm still very proud of to this day, along with the Thank You Smosh video. And I'm just very proud of what I got to do in a time of need for folks who hadn't done a lot for me. I was definitely a part of this community. People knew who I was. Cast knew who I was. There were some producers who knew who I was, and I was there and I did cool things. I'm really proud of that. Looking back, I wish I got to do more, which I know is such a crazy thing to say. I literally put together the biggest support video of the moment. I literally put together the biggest fundraising project of the moment. And I know it's very weird to hear me say, like, I wish I got to do more. But in many ways, I wish I did, because I was definitely much more centered on the fan aspect of it all when I was starting those. And it wasn't until after that I was like, oh, okay, it's not just about that. It's about the community and like the actual people behind it. So the reason why I say that is because I look back to that moment, and I want you guys to like legitimately hear this when I say this. Like, Defy Media shutting down was not just a horrible thing for the cast members of Smosh. It was not just a horrible thing for the cast members of Smosh Games. It was horrible for everyone at that company. Every single person who had a job and suddenly didn't. It's a reminder that YouTube, Twitch, and this is like, my career right now is very unstable and can crash and burn at any second. And so the reason why I say I wish I got to do more is because I look back and think back to the producers, the editors, everyone who was working at Smosh, and also the other companies under Defy, and got seriously like hurt getting let go from a job like that. Defy Media era shutting down was definitely a time of a lot of unity, but also a lot of hurt. Going through that and watching people go through that was definitely a hard time, and I'm glad that I got to be there to provide so much support. That's why I say I think that this moment is what really launched my career for me, because it was the moment when I realized that I can do something and I can be there to help. And as we'll see, the sunshine and rainbows of the community coming together does not last that long, as the drama sort of boils over. With Defy Media shutting down, you have a lot of different dynamics changing, where these folks who were forced to work together, cast members, producers, everyone, now have to suddenly take on the call to figure out the next steps. And when you figure out the next steps, you realize that some people are going to be a part of those steps and some people aren't. Unfortunately, for those of you who may probably know this, I believe there were already some Smosh Games members who are being phased out at this time. When Defy falls, Smosh Games sort of goes a little bit in different directions. You have the core 6 who break off from Smosh completely. This is where I start to also drift away from Smosh. This is where a lot of like tension starts to bubble up and boil up. And I don't necessarily mean that in a bad way. I know some people did. Damien was moved into the acting portion because they were doing skits. I remember the peanut butter one. I don't know if anyone remembers that one. That was weird. And Bose, I can't remember if Bose had left at this time. By the way, I just want to give a big round of applause to Bose. She has done so much to grow as a creator, and watching that evolution and that like really big blow up, it is phenomenal. And that goes to everyone. That goes to literally everyone. What I can speak to is the NE6 side. NE6 was New Element 6. It was the 6 of Mari, Lasercorn, Joven, Sohinki, Wes, and Flitz. This is where I start to learn a lot about everything that happened with Defy, with a bunch of different dynamics. But what I will say is that there was definitely a lot of tension that I had learned about. And this was not from everyone, actually. I want to make that very clear. Hearing all of it definitely did change my thoughts on Smosh. And that is where I want to talk about the era for me where I not just shifted away from Smosh, but really started to become not anti-Smosh, but I was like, okay, I see a lot of issues with Smosh as a company. I see that a lot of people were hurt. But for me, learning about this, I definitely started to take much more of a stance of like, oh, I'm not going to support that content anymore. That's not for me to support. I remember I actually got really frustrated with a piece of information that I heard, and I tweeted, literally, this is me being sincere, open and honest. I said I would be open and honest with you guys. I tweeted 2 words, Smosh who? Something like that, because people were talking about drama. And I said that as a way to be like, who? I don't care. And I actually got some former employees of the company actually liked that post, and I'm not going to say who it was or who they were. It was a very harsh time. Hearing information from one side, though, is very difficult, to say the least. I want to make that very clear, that this information that I was hearing was very one-sided. It was from a group of folks, and this is not NE6, but it was from a group of folks who were very upset and felt very screwed over by the events of the Defy shutdown. The fact that, like, I'm just sitting here as a community leader and I'm finding out information that I shouldn't know. Of course, at the time I was like, yes, give it to me. But now that I'm older and like an actual adult who knows things, I'm like, you were the adult of the situation. You didn't need to like be telling me these things. You know, for little young 19, 20-year-old me, I was very impressionable. It definitely turned my opinions on Smosh. I was definitely at a point where I was very much against supporting the channel because of the things I was hearing about certain people. And I do know the validity of a lot of the things that were told to me. I do want to make that very clear. Like, a lot of these concerns that were brought up to me were very much valid. And it got to the point where we as community leaders put together a note of all of the things that we were hearing, and we're like, we need someone to know that this is what we are hearing. I really wish I had this note still, that I could reference it more, but I know some very serious things, and from what I can tell, we never heard back, but we did start to see some action. It was kind of at this point where I moved away. This is kind of the hard part, because there was a lot of frustration, there was a lot of issues, and working in an environment based off a former environment was definitely interesting, to say the least. I was moderating for Joven, Mari, Lasercorn, and then NE6 as a whole. But there was one day where the light kind of just had to stop shining. You know, I'm very lucky that from the fallout of that, I got to build a very amazing relationship and working friendship with Mari, who took me on as her production assistant with her own personal content, everything she was doing. No, it was definitely a harsh time, and this was when we saw the Smosh community fall apart again. Keep in mind, now at this point, me and everyone else are considered not a part of the Smosh community. Those that were going back and forth have really strained. There were more so people who stopped watching Smosh completely, stopped watching NE6. There were some who were dedicated only to NE6, and mostly everyone else was only dedicated to Smosh. And then from there, you saw the breakouts of Damien now has his own community. You know, he's trying to build his own brand. I believe Noah was doing the same at the time. And even then, in this spot, I'm still trying to figure out the dynamics of the community. Who is from this community? Who is from that community? And that was the way my brain was swirling as a community manager, because it got very confusing at a time like this. Let me tell you that with so much drama happening, people would come by and ask about like something that I had no knowledge of. The amount of times, ooh, did you hear about this thing? I'm like, no, I don't. We're at a point where everything is different. Smosh is doing their own thing. I'm focused on over here. There is now communities within communities, and I also saw the communities getting very cliquey at this time. It definitely got to a point where there were different communities for different cast members, for different groups, whether it was like ships or one-off cast members, and people were starting to beef. I saw a lot of beef in the Smosh community at this time, and yes, I'm calling you out. If you were there and I saw that, I might have had to say something to you. It was just a very interesting time. I am definitely glad that we are past that. But from my stance as a community manager, my point at that time was to understand that it was my time to bow out. There comes a time where you realize there's nothing you can do to help. I just had to learn that it wasn't my battle. There was a lot of issues. I'm very glad that I stepped away when I did and sort of moved into my own thing. I was finishing college. I was doing stuff with Mari personally. That was my career. And because of that, I am now where I am now. I'm so proud of the work that I got to do. If I were to say walk away from this video with anything, it's not to walk away from it knowing that there was drama at one point. It's to walk away from it and know that like we are in 2025. Smosh is 20 years old. Smosh is going strong. Smosh overcame all of these issues that it was facing. That is so commendable. For me to have been going at a point where I'm like, I can't even look at this anymore, to now being like, wow, this is a group of folks that I really love again. I really lost the love for Smosh back in 2020, and to be at a point where I've just found that love all over again has been really heartwarming for me. I am so privileged to have been able to say that I got to work with Smosh in the past. In fact, I'm still like, sometimes a job will open up, and because of the nature of my work, like I haven't even said it, but I work with like a lot of different Twitch partners. I've worked with Survivor castaways, people who need random editing jobs, projects. I've gone to TwitchCon. I've gotten to do a lot of amazing things with a lot of different amazing creators. All of that is because of Smosh. That trust that I built from the ground up is something that no one really gets to say. The fact that I joined somewhere as a troll, a child and a troll, and that evolved into a career is really unheard of, and it's something that I have to sit here and continue to say that I'm proud of myself for. Where this ends with on the Smosh side is like, I really wish that I didn't have to be involved with issues like that arose, or have to be in the know or like a bouncing board, because now looking back, I realized that was very unfair of a lot of folks to use us as a community as the projection of their problems. That's no tea, no shade, no pink lemonade, absolutely at all to any of the folks who were doing that, because I was there to try to be supportive. I also want to make it clear that I say all of this that I've been saying with no ill will towards anyone. I'm not like, ooh, I really hate this person and I'll never speak to them again. That's not the case. It's more so just a thing of like, we went through a lot. Smosh has gone through a lot, and I have been there to watch it, good and bad. I'm very happy and I'm very proud that I got to be there and help out. Getting to be there in a position to help definitely means a lot. I really hope, this is one thing I will say. I want you, if you are at Smosh watching this video, I want to make this your number one priority. I don't know if you have a community manager. I hope you do. And if you do have a community manager, I want your number one priority to be the community. The community is the backbone. and always will be. Without that, and this goes to every creator too, without that community, you are nothing. So simple, so true. Support that damn community. But that's just because of where I'm from. As like a wrap up to all of this, go support Smosh. Go support the hell out of them. Watch their videos, like and subscribe, because throughout all of this, they never once gave up. Through Defy shutting down, through all of these issues, they never once gave up. They're now at a point where they are in a super strong position, backed by a super strong community. That is unheard of. That's unheard of. If a brand tanks, it tanks. After a shutdown like the Defy Media shutdown, Smosh should not have survived. I probably shouldn't be posting this video considering I'm applying to jobs with Smosh, but I hope that, I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't even post this video. For me, I just want to celebrate what has had to be overcome. What has had to be overcame. And I think for me, that is because I was a part of the group that had to do the overcoming. I say a part of the group. That's so unfair. I was not a part of that group. I want to make that very clear. I was on the sidelines with my like little supporting woo. I cannot tell you when I start working with folks and I say, yeah, I got my start as a moderator for Smosh and doing some production work. The amount of people who like get so excited and so giddy, like, oh my god, I love Smosh. The number one thing that I always say is like, I've seen a lot. This was like how I matured. Like I started as a kid. This is a brand that will go on for a long time because it has such a strong group of amazing people who will continue to come to work passionate. That is what is worth celebrating. I don't know. I think right now, I know it's weird to say I'd love to go back and do stuff with the brand, especially everything that I've been through. You'd think that I'd want to like suddenly like move away and go into like working with other creators and XYZ. I think right now it's kind of a dream job to go back to doing stuff with Smosh and like actually, because like I wasn't an actual employee. I would really love to go back and work and just see how everything has changed, because this is a brand that has meant a lot to me for 15 years now. It's a brand that I've gotten to essentially work with for 10 years now. Well, I guess not 10, whatever. Just being here a decade later for me, 20 years for Smosh, is really a milestone. From being shut down, not having a home, to now having so much support. I'm really glad to have been a part of that throughout that process. And, you know, Smosh, I need a job. I'm very proud of the work that I've gotten to do, and I'm very proud of Smosh. And I know I keep saying that I'm proud of myself, but like, god damn it, did I do a lot of work. And I really hope that I can keep doing a lot of work. Anyway, like I said, I'm going to be live every day of 2026. An interesting segue. So if you want to show up to that, go to twitch.tv/nobodyluke. I will be there streaming. I am just a small little streamer. I've always worked with the streamers. I was streaming during COVID, but that doesn't count. I'm gonna actually try it out and try things out and just be a little successful little devil. Just continue being good people. If you are part of the Smosh community now, just remember that your job is to not choose like stands, to not make things weird, to not create drama with like other community members. Like I guess that's a little privileged of me to say that, having been the person to go through that and moderate that for so long. Doing that creates stress. And although creators are very good at knowing not to look at that kind of stuff, your job as a community member is to uplift the creators who are uplifting you. That is my message to the community. My message to the folks who are currently working at Smosh is probably going to be to continue to uplift those who uplift you. Hey, no, it's true. It is true. That community has had your back for 20 years. Give back. Remember to give back. Keep them up in your sights. And I know I've shared like a lot of like the issues that were going on. Uplifting those who uplift you doesn't just mean your community. It also means every single person who you work with, every single person who will work with you, because they work hard. I think that is one of the things of like just going back to seeing that Defy Media shut down, and seeing so much hurt at that time. That hurt was caused because of passion. There were passionate creators who loved their jobs, had stable income because of it, and they value that. They value what you do. Everyone values what you do, from your creators to those who you collaborate with, to your community. If you continue to uplift and be strong, and remember that these are folks who legitimately have your back through thick and thin, then you will continue to be unstoppable for another 20 years to come. And I really hope that that is the case. Without further ado, I've been talking for too long. I'm losing my voice. I'm very proud of Smosh. Happy 20th birthday. You're gonna have your first drink next year. Make sure that it's not a red wine. I hate wine. I know that this is not a skit with a bunch of thank you videos at the end and cringy acting from yours truly. Although I have touched up on my acting skills a little bit, I will say. Like this whole thing, I lied. No, I didn't. This should be Friday when this is posted. And then afterwards, we will see what else is to come. And also hire me. Okay, bye.